Okay, I'm Heather.
I'm Marcy.
And this is the first official new podcast for Kayfabe 316.
And we're starting with Raw from January 5th, 1998.
Okay. So we opened the show with Stone Cold, and he was talking about how all of the guys who were going to be in the 1998 Royal Rumble were marked men. He made a comment about how everyone had a pager that they kept on them, and when they saw 316, that they knew their asses belonged to him.
He was going to race in hell that night.
Yep. And then we went to our first match, and it was Farouk versus Ken Shamrock. And they kept talking about how the last time they had a match, Shamrock got a lot of injuries from Farouk. That match was won by Ken Shamrock by submission via the ankle lock. Go ahead.
Then Stone Cold came out, and he stunned The Rock and Ken Shamrock.
Then we had a segment with Jim Cornette and a couple of guys from the NWA, and he was talking more about traditions in wrestling and keeping with wrestling traditions.
Last week he was going on and on about how there was no respect for wrestling, pretty much.
Yeah.
And his rant that he did back then.
Mm-hmm.
They brought on the NWA North American Championship belt and had a match between Barry Windham and Jeff Jarrett.
The winner of that match was Jeff Jarrett, and
Jim Cornette hit Barry Windham over the head. And that's how Jeff Jarrett won, because the referee didn't see it.
And while Jeff Jarrett was celebrating, Stone Cold showed up and gave Jeff Jarrett a stunner.
Then we had Ken Shamrock, and he was talking about wanting to fight Stone Cold.
He was talking about wanting to get everybody else out of the Royal Rumble besides the two of them so that they could face each other face to face, eye to eye. Then we had Sunny come to the ring, and she was announcing the next match, and we had Sniper and Recon from the Truth Commission, and there was a really creepy fan interaction with Jackal and a fan. He gave her this, like, red ruby looking sticker thing on her forehead.
He may have done that the week before too.
I missed that, but it's very culty. It's kind of creepy. It kind of gave me the creeps really bad, like the artist formerly known as Goldust and a Ball Gag kind of creeps. It was not pleasant. But they had the two of them versus Skull and 8 Ball. And Skull and 8 Ball won. And then during this match, they were actually talking about where Kurgan was, and Jackal was saying that he was never far away, and that Jackal was his alpha and omega, and all kinds of weird, creepy, culty sounding things. But at the end of that match, Kurgan came out, and he attacked Skull and 8 Ball. And then Sniper and Recon both were able to get back up, and they started helping attack Skull and 8 Ball, so it was 3-on-2.
Then we had DX come out. And last week is when Shawn Michaels introduced the two new members of DX, which were Chyna's implants. And the first comment they made was about, it was like staring in the sun. That you shouldn't, but you couldn't look away. Which, I mentioned this because Triple H is talking about fighting Owen. And during this time, if you look in the background, Shawn and Chyna Sean keeps looking at Chyna's breast, and she keeps looking over at him, and he pretends like he's not, which is it's the funniest part of that segment for me.
Yeah, it was entertaining for sure.
It was starting to crack Chyna up, and you could tell that she because she wasn't looking as serious.
Which is funny because she's just she's so into her character during this.
Yeah.
The whole time she was on, she was so into her character, but she's so into her character.
Last week she was doing it too when they were making all the jokes about her being the breast damn woman in town and stuff like that.
Double D Generation X.
Yeah. So it's funny when they crack her up.
Yeah. But she's still trying so hard to stay in character. It's awesome. But they were Triple H was calling out Owen, trying to get Owen to come to the ring. And Owen came on the Titantron and was pretty much like, screw you guys, I'm not coming out there.
He wanted Triple H's leg to heal. I probably should mention that.
Yeah.
Triple H had a dislocated kneecap, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then we had Savio Vega with the Los Barricas versus Owen Hart.
Yep.
DX was out there watching the match.
Yeah, they were just at the top of the ramp.
Owen won. Then Owen went to go. Did he go after DX?
During the match, the Los Barricas attacked Owen, and they were a ref came out and told them that they were gonna have to go, and it seemed like they left, and then Jesus, one of them, was up on the ring side, and he distracted Owen while he was doing the sharpshooter, so he didn't win by that, but Owen still won the match. And then he was walking up the ramp towards Triple H, and the Los Barricas attacked him from behind.
They delivered him to DX.
Yeah.
And after Triple H stood up and started slapping him, I think, or punching him or something. And then, Then Sean paid them off.
Yeah.
Then we had Paul Bearer. And he wanted King to come back home. Do you have any more?
Yeah. He was talking about The Undertaker and how The Undertaker had, poisoned Kane's mind against him and made him leave him. And he was talking about how he hoped that whenever Shawn and him had their match, that Shawn just pretty much took him out. And then he begged Kane to come back to him.
Yeah.
Again, that's, I think, something that, wrestling is missing a lot now, is these segments like that where there's, it pulled you in, and it told a bigger story, and I feel like we miss the story a lot now.
It's not to knock anyone who's currently doing it, because there's no one that I really dislike, but I don't feel like a lot of people are as dedicated to their characters as the people back then were.
And, I mean, part of it is that, the kayfabe was very strong back then, the kayfabe was so strong that, you lived your kayfabe, but still, in general, the storytelling just isn't the same anymore. It's not, and it's funny because they talk about how they're wanting to get away from the wrestling part and keep the entertainment part, but the storytelling is the entertainment part. The wrestling is the wrestling. The story is the filler, and the story is the entertainment. So if they really wanted to get away from the wrestling part of it, you'd think that the WWE would focus more on the storytelling, and they aren't.
One of the things when I was younger is that I used to watch, because my brothers like WWF better. They like WCW too. Well, my middle brother did. But WCW, I felt focused more on their wrestling, and WWF focused more on their story. So they both offered something differently.
Yeah. Then we went to, right after that, you had Jim Ross say that there was a development backstage, and backstage we had Stone Cold coming out of a locker room, and they went into the locker room, and Mark Henry was laying on the ground, and the Headbangers were with him, and they were talking about, you could tell that Stone Cold had just given Mark Henry a stunner.
Then we had Mark Mero with Sable versus Tom Brandi. And this feud's been going on for a little while now.
A few weeks now, yeah.
Mark Mero is still being crappy to Sable.
Whenever Tom Brandy came out, Mark was backing away from him, and then he got behind Sable and was using her as a shield, and then he like pushed Sable into Tom.
Yeah.
And
Stone Cold came out during that match and stunned Mark Mara.
And from what we could tell, it seems like because Stone Cold came out and gave Mark Mara a stunner, he would have won due to disqualification. And when he came out of the ring, the announcers kind of seemed like they thought that he was going to do something to Sable, but they kind of just both smiled at each other. It was very satisfying. It was kind of like one of those moments.
Then we had Flash Funk versus the artist formerly known as Goldust.
With Luna.
And Goldust was... Or the artist... I'm just going to call him Goldust because that's a lot to say every time we mention him.
Yeah. He was in blackface, which I just... Every time I see something that the WWE does like this, I think about the stuff that happened with Hulk Hogan in the last, year or so, and them, just pretty much, trying to erase him from their history. And I just have to shake my head because I'm like, you have on the network all of this racist bullshit that you did. And
we're glad that they have the Attitude Era. We're not knocking the Attitude Era. That's, when I was into wrestling.
But, you can't... He screwed up. He definitely screwed up. He made a mistake. I think that he owned up to his mistake. And there are people, there are lots of people who were like, dude, he's not an asshole. And the WWE still punishes him for it. And I
have to say this about Hulk Hogan. My uncle knew Hulk Hogan from his kids went to karate class with my cousins. And he had never said anything bad about Hulk Hogan. He always, my dad tells me stories, because my uncle's passed away. My dad tells me stories about how my uncle, thought he was, one of the nicest people because he seemed so down to earth. And I think my cousin actually has gone and seen him at his, what is it he has? Is it a restaurant or a bar or something that he has?
I just feel like if you're going to punish someone and act like you're this, perfectly wonderful, wholesome company, maybe you should think about the stuff that you did in the past, because you're taking something he did in the past and punishing him for it, and then going, well, we're not a racist company, except for there's all of this stuff that's happened in the past that proves otherwise. So I feel like his punishment is unjust. Maybe taking him off TV was fine.
Yeah.
But trying to erase him, it's ignorant.
And he is always going to be one of their biggest stars.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people think he's overrated, but Hulk Hogan was... I don't remember not knowing who Hulk Hogan was. My brother... When I had mentioned the greatest wrestler of the 80s to my brother, he's like, Hulk Hogan? And it's I could be talking about something like the DVD, the greatest wrestlers of the 80s, and my brother just assumed I was talking about Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. So...
Anyway, back to Raw.
Yeah. Where were we? Flash Funk. I don't know why I put Flash Funky. That's awesome. But Flash Funk won that match. And Vader came out to attack Goldust, and Goldust hightailed it out of there. Then we had the New Age Outlaws versus the Headbangers, and the Godwins came out and were watching from the top of the ramp. And they were talking about the Godwins being out there and why they were out there. And the Godwins, they helped the New Age Outlaws a few episodes back. And they feel like they're owed a title match at this point. Then we had Chainsaw Charlie came out. And the New Age Outlaws, much like Goldust, got the hell out of there.
Yeah. I don't blame them, because Chainsaw Charlie is pretty scary with that sparking chainsaw. Yeah. Then we had Shawn Michaels.
Nope.
What do we have?
Then we had a Don King segment talking about Mike Tyson at WrestleMania.
I must have just not paid attention.
I know. I really don't give a flying fig Newton about Mike Tyson being at WrestleMania, just because I don't really care for Mike Tyson at all. So I understand why you would just totally just blipped that scene out. But yeah,
I was multitasking too.
Yeah. And, so yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Though.
Shawn Michaels came out and talked about Undertaker pretty much being a loser.
He's cutting his Royal Rumble promo there.
Then the week before, Shawn came out in a casket. Isn't that right? With a Shawn in it. And this week, when it happened again, Shawn assumed that it was Triple H and Chyna. Or one of them.
Yeah.
And while he's, like, telling them to come out of there, Triple H and Chyna come out on the stage. And they're trying to get his attention. And once he realizes that they're not the ones in there, Undertaker opens it up and pulls Shawn in it with him. And we end Raw with being in the casket with them.
Yeah. That was intense. I think, like, I feel like that's something that, like, WWE lacks a lot of the like I said, the story. I feel like there was a lot of stuff. Like, I can't wait to watch the next episode just because I want to know what happens next. And I feel like that was what pulled me in originally. Like, whenever I was in 6th grade when I started watching wrestling, so back in 2000. So whenever I started watching wrestling, that's what pulled me in, was the stories. Like, I didn't watch wrestling. I had a few friends that watched wrestling, but they didn't really talk to me about it. But I was flipping channels and there was, stuff happening, and I was like, what is this? I need to pay attention. I want to know. And I feel like, I was like 10 years old, 11 years old then. So I feel like, the story is what pulled me in, and I feel like if I was 11 now and turned it on, I don't feel like they have the story to pull me in anymore.
My brothers tried for years to get me into it. Like, I remember when Undertaker and Paul Bearer were, like, doing, like, the really creepy promos, and they probably wouldn't be so creepy now. That they're creepy when you're 5 years old. And they, like, I think I'd watched a match between Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels. I think it may have been a ladder match. And I was, like, a little too into it, like, because I didn't realize, I was, I think, 8, and I didn't realize that it was, scripted, and that they weren't really, like, trying to kill each other. So I, like, started, like, having this panic attack. But when I was 10, my brothers finally actually got me fully into it. And I think it was because of the storylines, because I liked soap operas when I was little. So it was easy for me to get into something that was very...
I think that's what made it easy for me. But then, like, I like watching the wrestling. I like watching the physicality, that's the word I'm looking for, the physicality of the wrestling and things, because, And
I was actually talking to Heather about this earlier. I really liked seeing a girl kick a guy's ass. Because I have brothers, and it was, because I really liked Sable when I started watching, because Sable was feuding with Mark Mero, and I liked Chyna because Chyna was the muscle behind DX.
Wrestling in general, it was just nice to have, especially whenever we would have started watching, because right now, like, Chyna's on, and we have Sable, and we have Sunny, but they don't have any women, they don't really have women wrestling right now. At all. Yeah. We haven't had any female matches. So, but it's really nice to have, like, whenever I was a kid, to have, like, that, like, the, like, ability to look up to women and see women as strong and they could take care of themselves. And again, that's something I feel like they lack now. They have plenty of women on the roster that are strong and very capable, but they choose to make them look weak and like men are all that matters and, boy crazy and stupid things like that. And it's like, don't do that,
And I mean, you had someone like Chyna who was a very strong character, but she barely spoke at first. And just her presence was enough. And it's like, they could do that with some of the women that they have now. I mean, I wouldn't want them to try to make it just like Chyna. First of all, it's just after her death. And second of all, we're never going to have another Chyna. You can't just replace people. But they could have them, like, work more on having a presence and like writing it so that they had a presence. Like all of those women had presence. We're past the point where Marlena's on. I mean, we're going to get her back as Terry eventually. But she had a presence. Sunny had a presence. Sable definitely had a presence.
Yeah. Even without...
Luna had one, too.
Yeah, I forgot about her when I mentioned all those women. But even without the wrestling, the women still had a very...
And you could tell they were strong.
Yeah.
Like, they weren't, like, some weak ballet. And I'm not, like... I wouldn't say, like, I can't think of somebody who was really a weak ballet back in the day.
No.
Because even, like, with Miss Elizabeth, she came off as a gentle person. She wasn't weak.
Thank you for listening. We'll probably have another one up in the next couple of days, if not tomorrow. And in the meantime, follow us on...
We'll have the... Are you posting this on YouTube?
Yeah.
We'll have the links in the description box.
Yeah. Subscribe, like this, comment.
Share it.
Share it, yeah, for sure. You can follow us on Twitter and Tumblr, and hopefully we'll probably post a link for a Snapchat, and maybe we'll snap some of the stuff we're watching while we're watching it. But thank you guys so much.